Good afternoon. It's 1400. Welcome to Recovering Future Generations Policy Development Committee. Any apologies for absence? I've had none to date.
Got quite a few, Chair, from councillors David Helliwell, Matthew Jones, Paulette Smith and Linda Tyler-Lloyd.
Thank you, Kate. Any disclosures of personal prejudicial interests? None indicated, Kate. The minutes, as from the meeting on the 21st of December 21, pages 1, 2 and 3. Any matters arising from the minutes, please? None indicated, Kate. Item 4 is the workforce strategy. Adrian's here this afternoon to give a general update, I believe. Good afternoon, Adrian. How are you?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. I'm actually in the Guildhall at the moment, looking out at the trees blowing outside. None of them crashed through the building. You'd be glad to hear so far, and no sheds, and no sheds either.
No sheds.
So in terms of thanks. So in terms of the workforce strategy, I'm here to give a verbal update. As you'll be aware, the strategy has been developed and consulted on during the course of this current financial year. And to remind you that we have 4 key themes: leadership and management, a workforce fit for the future, being an employer of choice, and workforce well-being and inclusion, and there are a number of key strands and activities that sit underneath that. We have consulted very widely with members through bodies such as this and other bodies, consulted with our staff through the staff survey and through employer focus groups, and with our trade union representatives, and also with our leadership team, CMT and a head of service customer focus group. So as I say, there've been quite wide-ranging consultations. This strategy was taken to CMT a fortnight ago, and there were a number of changes, not strictly in relation to the detail of the document. In fact, everybody was in agreement that the key themes and strands were the right ones. But to include in the strategy a statement by the leader, which we will obtain, and also some additional activities with regard to the schools workforce, which Helen Morgan-Rees is working on at the moment. We are ensuring that the document is reflective visually of the workforce that we want to be, and not necessarily the workforce that we are at the moment. So that's been worked on, but also to reflect the fact that CMT we're conscious of the, if you like, the capacity of us to deliver this strategy over the proposed 3-year timescale, 2022 to 25. So they were keen to, if you like, have this strategy to run through the duration of 2022 to 2027. So it becomes a 5-year strategy as opposed to a 3-year strategy. So those amendments are in the process of being made, and will be launched as soon as we practically can. I am taking it again through to our leadership team meeting in early March, so we again close that loop, if you like, in that consultation circle. In terms of the activities in regard to the strategy, we haven't been sitting on our hands in terms of the tasks that sit underneath that. We've advertised for a number of positions funded through the Recovery Fund monies to support us in areas of pay and grading, recruitment, attraction, quality systems, and organisational design and behaviours. So that will be happening. But also areas such as development of a coaching framework. We've already started to implement that. Development of a workforce equalities group to look at the key issues and aspects in respect of equalities issues, and you know, I think we're also conscious that the data that we have on the employee data that we have on our protected characteristic workforce needs you know, an extra push, shall we say, to try and encourage our employees to record their data, so we can, you know, be better informed as to the issues in respect of our protected characteristic communities. Also, we've taken a Welsh language skills framework through to CMT, and that will also be discussed at leadership team, with a view to, should we say, relaunching our approach to Welsh language skills provision in the council. So that's really just sort of quick run through of the workforce strategy and where we are at the moment, and of course welcome any questions. Adam, that's it.
Thank you, Chair. It was just while you were miming to me.
Not very often.
Yeah. Just a quick comment, if I may, just on the strategy. I think what we've got will be a 5-year strategy ultimately. That will be a stretch strategy. So it's quite an ambitious strategy to really change part of the culture and the behaviours of the authority, and prepare itself. So if you think of it initially as a framework, the foundation, if you like, in which the council can grow and flex and develop as we move forward, thinking about some of those challenges that we've got ahead of us certainly over the next 5 years, from you know, workforce recruitment, thinking about the finances, the regional agenda, thinking of the climate emergency. You know, all these aspects come into play, and the one thing that is truly our most important asset is our staff. So this strategy is only as good as it's embedded and adopted by all the services across the council. And so that's why the myriad of people that Adrian's spoken about in terms of engaging in this strategy is very important, that they have that buy-in, have that ownership, because this isn't something that will just be delivered from a HROD perspective. This is something that has to be living and breathing within each of those services. So I would hope that certainly within the document, we've got lots of metrics and measures and what does success look like. And I think, you know, scrutiny will have a role to play also in that, in terms of holding the strategy and the departments to account. But I think there's also a role here for the PDC in terms of that future recovery, certainly from a future generations point of view, about, you know, that diverse workforce, that coaching, that development, that learning organisation that Adrian talked about, in terms of how do we get there? How do we keep changing our policies and practices to make sure that we're not just a learning organisation, but a delivering organisation for the future? And that's what the strategy is aimed to do. So it needs to be a living, breathing document that is at the forefront, not just sat on a shelf. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Councillor Walton. Hiya, Leslie.
Thanks, Chair. Adrian, you mentioned the Workforce Equality Group. I was just wondering, the name Equality, I assume they're not going to be sort of constrained by that term and be open to anything and everything that might relate to the workforce. Am I right in saying that, or hoping that?
Well, the remit is primarily around addressing issues of equalities, and Joe's on this call and is part of that group. I think at the moment we have quite an agenda to follow around, you know, as I mentioned earlier, ensuring that our data collection is as robust as it possibly can be. But there will be activities there around making sure our equalities training is fit for purpose, making sure that our recruitment practices encourage applications and appointment of candidates from all communities in Swansea. it's early days in terms of that particular group. I think at the moment, as I say, you know, that group will concentrate on equalities issues. Was there anything in particular you were thinking of then, Councillor Walton?
What I wouldn't want is for the group to be constrained such that if a member of staff came up with a question or a query or a suggestion that wasn't quite within that remit, that there was somewhere they could go to make sure that it was followed up, because certainly that seems to me that that's all part and parcel what in fact Adam's just been talking about, in that all staff have got to buy into this. And I don't want any member staff to suddenly find, oh, they go and ask something and are told, oh, no, we're not dealing with it. That was my point, really. Thanks.
Yeah, I think on that point, yeah, of course, you know, we'd welcome ideas, questions raised by all members of staff. It would probably be myself as the sort of lead in that particular group as to whether it would be considered by the Workforce Equalities group or considered and addressed by some other forum. If, you know, for example, it's an idea, good idea, let's put it through our ideas hub that we've got in place, or there might be another forum that we can respond to. So I think just to reassure you, we wouldn't be turning staff comments away, but we just need to find the right forum to address them.
Thanks, that makes sense.
Thank you. I'll take Adam next, and then we'll take Councillor White, Councillor Hale, and then Councillor Hennigan. Okay, Adam, would you like to come in first?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just in relation to Leslie's question there. I think you're absolutely right, Leslie. So although the groups will have a specific terms of reference, and I wouldn't want to stray too far from that particular terms of reference, because I want them to be really focused to deliver on their agendas and not be lost looking at lots of different areas, and then it sort of becomes so wide it becomes almost unmanageable. What we are looking at is that there is a corporate workforce group that will be set up under the strategy that will look at more holistically across the wider idea. As Adrian says, we've got the ideas hub as well for any new ideas that's already up and running and active. So if there are new ideas, whether it be for this or associated with anything to do with the council, they can come through there. We've also got the Let's Talk leadership group, which again, if it's something about how do we lead the organisation, how do we do it differently, coaching, mentoring, they can come through a different route. All this will come together once the strategy is in place so that everybody knows which channel they need to run down, and there'll be cross-reference between all of them. So if it doesn't fit in one area, it'll signpost to the other to make sure it gets picked up and not lost. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adam.
Councillor White, aye, Mike.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Adrian, obviously we touched on education. I'd be very interested regarding, you said obviously we will bring in with education scrutiny, fair enough, but also the head teachers forum, because you know if this strategy is going to come place with workforce, I think it's important that this information is fed through via the directive or head teachers to bring back their governing bodies, because ultimately it's the governing bodies that actually employ the staff in the school. So I think that's an important that we need to sort of have that strand in place on the workforce strategy. But anyway, but schools should have policies in place such as the equality policy already. But obviously, if there's going to be new amendments and that to the policy, that we need to be fully made aware of what the changes are and policies are actually brought up to date.
Yeah, on the sort of the wider point around engagement with schools, had a meeting with Helen Morgan-Rees yesterday because she's highlighted some additional activities that she would want included in schools, particularly around leadership development in the schools area, succession planning in the schools area, particularly in the Welsh schools workforce, and also to address issues around recruitment and retention. So I think we all recognise the importance of including schools in that, albeit they are a separate and distinct but large part of our workforce.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Adrian. Councillor Hennigan. Terry?
Right. Yeah, when you talk about equalities, how and which way are you fetching equalities, you know, to general public? When are we going to be having face-to-face meetings, not just the public, but councillors as well? Because surely they have also got to be included in the ambitious 5-year strategy.
Sorry, Councillor Hennigan, I'm not sure I understood the question. Are you talking about equalities public facing to the public, or are you talking about our workforce?
Well, I think the public should also be a part of the equalities.
Right. Okay. So, Joe, I don't know if you want to come in to sort of explain where this sits in with the wider equalities piece, but Councillor Hennigan, the workforce equalities group has been identified as a group that needed to look at specifically issues around our workforce and, you know, developing our product, shall we say, to support equalities issues in our workforce. But of course, there are other forums that look at equalities issues that affect the wider public and the wider Swansea communities.
Okay.
Terry, should we leave Joe come in? Maybe Joe can bring something to the conversation.
Yes, yeah, just to say that.
Sorry, Joe, it was Joe
sorry.
Hale. Oh, Joe, do you want to go first then?
Oh, no, it's okay. Just a couple of things first. So in relation to the work of the Staff Equalities Group, that's the sort of data and information we'll be including in our annual review of equality and diversity. So that group, I think, will be instrumental in terms of improving the data we hold on staff around protected characteristics and wider diversity and inclusion issues. But I also just wanted to mention very quickly as well, we're hoping to have a presentation on the staff storybook or handbook at the next PDC, and within that handbook there'll be reference to the equalities group that Adrian was talking about the ideas hub, and hopefully it'll be a place not only for staff but for councillors to see all the different forums and mechanisms for sort of staff engagement.
I think that would be very useful. Very useful, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully Marlon will be doing that next month. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Councillor Hale, Joe? Yeah,
cheers. Adrian, interested in the concept of building a future workforce fit for delivery of the city or county or whatever. But that must mean a huge element of learning and development then for lower graded staff. And how have we fitted that into those sort of wider plans?
Yes, so we have a specific strand on workforce development.
Adrian, can I just say, sorry, okay. but we've heard, haven't we, a few times over the last few months about developing leadership and leadership skills, and all for that. But we have to also remember that there's a lot of people, a lot of quality people at the bottom end of the service in the council that would like the opportunity to have careers elsewhere within the local authority. And I'm not sure whether I actually see that being demonstrated at the moment. And so I understand that you're developing and training and maybe opening up resources to allow. Could you tell me what sort of courses and what sort of career development actually takes place now, and then what are we looking forward to in the future to give us this workforce? Because I'll tell you what I think most workers would say, the one thing that would really help is having 100% of their substantive posts filled. So not always having vacancies, or I don't know whether you operate a vacancy panel in the city and county of Swansea, but certainly from my knowledge of low paid work, there's always a vacancy. There's always areas not covered. And we don't see that replicated at the higher end of the organisation. So training, development, and how do we get those blue collar workers moving into white collar worker jobs? Thanks.
Okay, I think this was brought up by a few people when we had the focus group with employees about the ability or the potential to develop themselves for future roles into the council. And you know, that is it, and I think my perception of that is that there are pockets of good practice. There are pockets of less good practice, and for me, it's developing that sort of consistency of approach through, you know, regular one-to-ones, regular appraisals, which includes conversations around employee development to help identify the workforce that we need for the future, and that's all part of the workforce planning tool, if you like, to have that succession planning in place, so we can help to develop our employees into that space, whether they're blue collar or white collar. We have, in terms of specific training provision, we have over the last couple of years developed a partnership arrangement with Gower College, and they work quite closely with managers and heads of service and so on to put in a number of sort of training interventions to support our workforce across the whole range of the council, from the Education Directorate, Social Services, and the Police Directorate in particular, and that includes provision around, you know, apprenticeships, specific training courses, and tapping into the funding that's available for many of these courses through Welsh Government and other funding sources. So for me, it's you know, providing those opportunities, but also making managers and staff aware of those opportunities and encouraging them to take advantage of them.
And being able to be released, because that's where you need your full staffing quota, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and for me that's part of the equation. Yes.
Yeah, because I often hear about leadership and you know, the amount of courses and the money that is thrown at the top of an organisation, but then at the lower end, for the last 5 years, we've had the Wolf programme from Welsh Government and the trade unions, and the trade unions have been delivering basic skills courses in the public sectors in Wales. So, you know, maybe some of that organisational money should be shunted downwards as well as upwards. That's my only point. Thanks very much. Cheers, Adrian.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Councillor Jardine, Aya Yvonne.
Hi, thanks, Chair. This is just, sorry, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have my button. Okay, so it's under what you were talking, Adrian, about expanding the workforce to have it reflect the community. And yeah, as you know, this is my one of my things. But I was just wondering, when these vacancies are advertised in the future, because I know sometimes vacancies are advertised at internal only, which I can understand. But when I'm asked, where shall I look for jobs advertised within the council, I'm usually at a loss. And I was just wondering, I was just thinking, for people, for the community out there, whichever, you know, for people out there to know their vacancies, they need to be able to see them, to know where they are, where to look. So I was just wondering, what are we going to do about that in the future? Yeah,
well, one of the roles that we are looking to recruit into through the Recovery Fund monies is a recruitment specialist to look as part of that role's remit as to how we can best engage with those communities. You know, I think if you look at the processes and the systems that we've got, they aren't particularly sort of user friendly, and that's something we need to do to make them as user friendly as possible, but also to promote Swansea as a employer that would welcome applicants from all different parts of the communities in Swansea, and that would be part of that role's remit as well.
Yvonne, do you want to come back quickly
Thanks.
before I bring
Chair,
Adam in?
Yes, please. Okay, so my first thing is we're going to employ a specialist at ridiculous money from where I'm sitting, maybe not from where they're sitting. Whereas I think what we sometimes need to do is try and speak to the people, deal with the grassroots, who you're trying to affect. For me, if you get someone in who is a specialist in electricity, for example, they're not going to speak to the electrician that's wiring your building. They are top level and they come up with strategic and ideas. I'm not saying that you don't need someone, but maybe you just need to speak to the staff, Adrian, that we have now and just advertise in the community. It's not being rude, it's not rocket science.
No.
And having someone come in to tell you how to do it, to me just seems, yeah. 5 years later, 5 years later, we'll be having this conversation still.
Right.
And that's one of the things I have against those top level people.
Yeah.
Years down the line,
Jack,
their ideas are still being worked on, kicked around.
Jack, can I just...
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right, Yvonne. And it comes down to terminology. So what we don't have is the capacity. So it's all right saying, well, just go and talk to the community, just go and talk to members of staff. We need people to be able to do that. And that's what the money's here to do, is to bring in, when we say a specialist, it's someone that has the capacity to be able to engage with the community, that has the capacity to be able to shape and coordinate and bring that information together in a plan that we can move forward. That's why it's coming in. We're not looking for somebody just to come in and tell us what we need to do, but we do need that capacity. That's what we're short of at the moment, is capacity to be able to develop some of those areas. You've got officers here today that are servicing committees and so on. Unfortunately, we just do not have the people to actually do the work of getting out there, linking in with communities, linking in with staff. We just haven't got it. If the PDC would like to lead on that, and you do the admin and the legwork and pull that in as the PDCs were meant to do, we'd happily let the PDC go down that route and help shape it. But we are at capacity as a workforce in order to be able to do some of this work. So we need that capacity coming in.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I can't answer. That would be for the chair to. But it comes back to a little bit of what Joe was saying. Could we advertise in-house for someone to do that? There must be someone who works with the council who has the wherewithal and might like the promotion or the extra money. Of that's just, I'm just throwing it out there. I'll leave it now anyway. But yeah,
just come back on that.
I have an issue about the people on the ground generally stay there.
So the council's policy is to recruit internally first before we go external for any role. So that's a matter of course, so we should do that anyway and give people internal that first opportunity. What I would say is that actually, if you think across, I don't know any service at the moment that wouldn't tell you that they're stretched, that they're at breaking point, that actually responding to what they respond to. So all we keep doing is moving around the pieces on the board and not building any capacity. So by taking someone from another service, we just open up another problem somewhere else. That's not to say we don't do it. We absolutely do and give them that opportunity. But there comes a point when we have to have, as Joe was saying, we've got, well, not only fresh blood, but actually we have so many vacancies in the council that if we keep robbing them from another department, we just don't get any of the work done because people just keep moving. So it is about how do we build capacity to be able to deliver on some of those areas. If I may just take a slight liberty, Mandy, in terms of just addressing one of one of Joe's points. One of the new metrics that is in the strategy moving forward is the number of employees securing more senior roles after completing training. To pick up that very point is we want to see where training's coming from, how they move up the ladder a little bit further, whichever level it is they're at, to move up. So a senior isn't a management, it isn't necessarily a head of service or supervisory, it's anyone that moves up the ladder from where they are to whatever the next rung is. And that's one of the metrics that we've put in so that we can track that and understand where that will happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam. Thanks, Chair.
Before I bring Adrian in and Councillor White and Councillor Hale, I think, you know, like Joe, most of us are trade unionists, got years and years of experience out there supporting colleagues and mentoring colleagues, and actually developing the confidence for people to come forward. Because as Joe says, there is a lot of talent, but it comes down to confidence and that can-do attitude. So as an organisation, you know, we once again got one chance at this. And once again, I would like to ask about one-to-ones, which should be specifically about the colleague and what the colleague aspires or foresees themselves in maybe 2 or 5 years, that development and that mentoring scheme. So the one-to-one is very important for me. So the manager understands the aspirations of the individual, because concept of family is very intact. So we take everybody on this trip with us. And I would like to ask again about apprenticeships. When we talk about apprenticeships, other big organisations currently, you know, as they recover from COVID, are opening opportunities internally for an apprentice to come in, not with a specific aim to be customer service. It could be finance, it could be operational, it could be anywhere. So possibly to look at apprenticeships to give opportunities, not in one specialism, but to open it up so people get a feel for the organisation and adapt to what probably they could adapt to best. And when we talk about, as Joe said, the WOLF, Wales Union Learning Fund, I've seen a lot of people start basic skills and they are, as you say, not managerial, but prime team members within big organisations who are bringing a lot to the table. And it is about that self-confidence. It's about being part of the team. It's very much about listening, understanding, because we have got a lot of talent, and it's not only in the lower grades, right throughout, where people could aspire to be bigger and better. So mentoring's a big one for me, one-to-one's a big one for me, and apprenticeships for all, but not to take somebody specifically, but maybe for somebody who's not quite sure, but would have an excellent opportunity to be part of the council, to probably bring them in, give them 3 months here, 3 months there, so they have a feel for where they want to be. So it does work very well everywhere else. But, you know, we've got one chance, so an opportunity for one should be an opportunity for all. And to me, it is about the confidence, because a lot of the people I've dealt with through the years, a bad experience, a bad educational experience takes your confidence away. So it's about having that can-do attitude and bringing everybody on board for me. So I'll bring Adrian in now, and then Councillor White, only Councillor White. Thanks, Adrian.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. I'll try and address, there's obviously a number of points that you've raised and Councillor Jardine raised as well, so I'll try and sort of capture those and obviously build in Councillor Jardine and what Adam has said. in terms of the recruitment specialist, and the job title is perhaps a bit misleading in that respect, but basically what this person will be doing that engagement piece. And I remember that you sort of a previous meeting sort of volunteered yourself, I guess, to support us in that, so we'll welcome that and take you up on that previous offer. But also working with the Workforce Equalities group, which has representatives from each of the protected characteristic communities, and what has really impressed me certainly from the first meeting that we've had was the can-do attitude that Mandy expressed, and these are people who you wouldn't necessarily see as being part of these groups. They come from all walks of life, from all areas of the council. So for me, I think it was really refreshing. And I was I think I said this to meet, I was very nervous as to how that group would gel, but they gelled really well, and have got a clear sense of direction and purpose about what they want to achieve and what we need to achieve going forward. So hopefully, the recruitment specialist and the Workforce Equalities group will be able to get underneath these problems with yourselves, and help attract the workforce that reflects the communities that we serve, and we have recognised that is an issue at the moment, and that's not to work top down, so to speak, but working with all of those groups whenever we can. In terms of the points that you raised, Councillor Evans, one-to-ones, yeah, again, there's a strand in the workforce strategy around recognising performance, and for me that is around having more regular conversations with staff, whether that's through one-to-ones or other discussions, and development is part of that, should be part of that discussion, so that we ensure that our staff have the skills to do the job that they're doing, but also the skills for the future. And again, sort of the Gower College arrangement is party to that. Gower College, again, we work quite closely with them in terms of developing apprenticeship schemes. We've just had 4 of our apprentices win Apprentice of the Year awards with Gower College, which is really good, but they're always working hard with us and with heads of service and managers to identify apprenticeship and training opportunities for our formal apprentices with the capital A, but also apprenticeship schemes for our existing workforce. I'm just trying to read my writing here. So in terms of the Wolf training, we have got arrangements with the trade unions around social partnership working, but that's something we could probably address as part of that framework as to what training could be provided via Wolf to tap into that. So I think that's a really good point, that we can tap into that and have that discussion with them. Does that answer all your questions, Councillor Evans, or are there others?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor White, hiya, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Adrian. Yeah, in regards, obviously, to bringing in a specialist person, I think where obviously he's on see where Yvonne's come from. I think she hit the nail on the head, is that if you're going to take on a person on quite a big salary, it's going to minimise the actual the absolute of funding and resources. But there is good practice going on within the authority, within Parks and Waste Management, for staff for the progressions if they want to go higher up the ladder. So there's good practice there. And also, as we've said before, we've got a lot of agency staff within these areas. Now, if we know there are vacancies in those departments, why aren't we then filling those posts? But as I say, because it's seen, as Yvonne has said, all the sort of vacancies are internal, and as the Deputy Chief Executive said, that's the policy. But then it seems to people perhaps outside who's trying to get employed in the council is seen as we were operating an actually closed shop as an employer. But as I say, in regards to the apprenticeships, I understand that under the City Deal projects, with the main contractors, that we have got part and parcel of that is them offering apprenticeships on these projects. And I know we've obviously discussed this as well within the scrutiny board as well. But I say, but there are opportunities there, and I say, but coming back to I'm a specialised person, as a council, we would certainly want to see evidence that what we've asked this individual to do is actually happening. By the way, perhaps a key performance indicator, so we can measure the actual success. And I think that's that's important. That this should be looked into.
Yeah, Councillor White, that's a really valid point about KPIs, and there will be KPIs that will be put in place for this role alongside the other roles that we've got. In terms of agency workers, you may be aware from previous discussions that our particularly in our waste management areas, which has the biggest number of agency workers, there are plans to convert those into traineeships, and that work is ongoing, and that is reducing the number of agency workers in that particular area. So yeah, I think does that answer your questions that you've raised, or are there other aspects to it?
As I say, it's coming back to our policy that we offer internal staff first, to pick up the vacancy.
Yeah,
I fully, but what I'm saying is that doesn't, if we haven't got no sort of takers up in those areas for whatever reason it is, why can't then that go outside so people have the opportunity to try and get their foot on the ladder of employment with a local authority rather than going to agency companies? Right. Okay. So, I mean, I think the answer to that question is yes, of course, as Adam says, we would always look to recruit internally, and that picks up on the point that Councillor Hale made earlier on about giving our workforce the opportunities to develop and progress in the organisation. If we aren't successful, then we will, I would say in the majority of cases, go outside to recruit externally. I'm not aware of any great numbers of agency workers being brought in to cover, unless there's a real need for somebody to be brought in on a short-term and temporary basis. I think to some extent this again sort of ties in with the work of the recruitment specialist and the workforce equalities group. This role will be looking to go out to attract candidates from all areas of Swansea and all areas of our communities. I think at the moment, when you particularly look at social services, but in other areas, we are facing skill shortages. We are facing problems in recruiting into those areas. So that's no mean feat in trying to recruit into those areas, but the opportunities are there at the moment for staff either internally or externally for a role in Swansea Council.
Thanks, Adrian. I'll bring two more speakers in on this, and then we'll bring this to a close. So we'll have Councillor Hale first, and then Councillor Hennigan. Joe? Yeah, cheers. I suppose just on the point of bringing specialists in, I've got a fair bit of experience working with different specialist organisations in the health sector. Some of them brought in extraordinary and outrageous amounts of money and given us and supplying nothing. The outcome, if you measured it, they'd owe us money, not us pay them to do the job. The other thing, of course, is, and this is an observation, in 25 years in public sector, mainly in the health sector, we've always managed, haven't we, to fill senior posts really quickly. So a senior salary, and we've already got someone lined up. We get a cleaner, we get a porter, we get a bin men leave, and what do? Oh, we're going to get the agency, or we'll leave and work short. And that's why I started off the conversation about making sure that if we want a service fit for the future, we need full-time posts, substantive posts filled.
And we then need more than that. We need to get back to a time when we had at least a third funding for people that are off sick and people that are on annual leave. We can't run a world-class service. We just can't run a world-class service with pennies. We can't keep on year having cost improvement plans, because it doesn't do Swansea any good, does it? The whole point of having people being well paid or having a sufficient pay is to make sure they spend their money. Loads of people, great thing that Swansea have done, this council has done with a £10 minimum wage. Excellent, because every person that's earning that £10, I can bet you bottom dollar will be spending that money in Swansea. The person that earns 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a year, he ain't staying in Swansea for his holidays. Thanks very much.
Okay. Can I come back on that?
If you wish, Adrian, yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just to reassure you, Councillor Hale, that the recruitment specialist is not coming in on those rates of pay. He's coming in on a graded role as part of our evaluated scheme. Nowhere near those figures that you've quoted. But I do understand your point about bringing in expensive consultants. But that's not what's going to happen with this particular role. Yeah, of course. I welcome and support the £10 per hour rate that's been agreed for all the reasons that you've stated. So I'm fully supportive and in agreement with that, and obviously played my part in ensuring that we got that in place. But obviously that was driven by others primarily, so I'm not taking any credit for that. In terms of agency workers covering for vacancies, and from my understanding of the discussions that I have regularly with managers, particularly in the Police Directorate, the agency workers that are coming in are primarily in the waste management area. I'm not aware that there are any or many that are coming in to undertake cleaning and portering jobs. That's not something I'm aware of.
That was in another area of public sector.
Okay, so not in Swansea Council.
No, I get carried away when I talk about the differences in how we approach people in work and how we approach getting things done.
Right.
Sorry.
All right. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Adrian. Right, the last speaker on this is Councillor Hennigan. Terry, do you want to come in?
Yeah, only briefly, regarding apprenticeships, I think the City County of Swansea have done a fantastic job this last 10 years recruiting apprenticeships. Great example of that, I visited the arena with other councillors, and that was one of the questions I actually asked the guy who was taking us on the tour. And he said that they had taken at least 28 apprentices through the local authority from Swansea who actually live in Swansea. And that's something else we can tap into. I don't think we says enough about the quality of those apprenticeships and how many we've created over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. That's a positive to finish on. Adrian, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to build on that positivity, we have to give credit to Gower College here. They do a marvellous job in providing the training and apprenticeships for our workforce, but also working in partnership with bodies such as the Arena and other bodies to provide what is really good quality training, in my opinion. So I think credit where credit's due. We've got a good relationship with Gower College and we work well, and we keep winning awards. So that's a credit to us all, I think.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Adrian. Just one thing to say, maybe we're not quite as clever, as I've said before, with actually promoting the positives, because there are loads of positives.
Yeah.
It's always the negatives that are announced and promoted. So, taking what Terry said, maybe we do need to promote our successes, because there's a lot out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll take this opportunity to thank Adrian and the team for supporting us this year, 2021-22. Obviously, we're coming to a close. We've got one meeting left this year. So I would like to for everything you've brought to the table. I've enjoyed your contributions, Adrian, because we are very much a diverse community, shall we say, all with different opinions. But I think what you've brought has been a learning curve for us, and I hope you've enjoyed your stay as much as we've enjoyed you. But sincerely, thank you, because you have brought a lot to this agenda. And there won't be another opportunity 21-22 for you to contribute again on this committee. So sincerely, thanks to you and your team for everything you've brought here. It's been quite aspirational. So if you wish, you can stay or you can leave us, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'll leave you to the rest of your agenda. Thanks very much, and see you in the new financial year.
Thanks, take care.
Thank you, bye.
And then we'll move on to the annual report 21-22. It's item 5. I'd like to firstly thank Jo Portwood for all her commitment and the support that she's given us over this year, not forgetting Kate, because without Kate, I think we would have been lost as well. But thank you both sincerely. Thanks, Sally. We've seen quite a bit of you over the last year, 21-22. And as for Adam, well, Adam brings something different to the table, but thanks for your attendance. So the work plan is there. I'd like to thank Jo and Councillor Hale and Leslie, Councillor Walton, for obviously the couple of amendments and the contribution they've made. But everybody has contributed to this annual report, and I think we've done quite well this year. So thanks all. If there's anybody who would like to speak on the annual report, it's all there. It was delivered last week. So if anybody would like to contribute, now's your chance. Silence. Right, thank you. And then we go on to the work plan for the 29th of March, which will be our final meeting for the financial year 21-22. So as Jo said, Marlin is bringing the staff workbook, which I think we'll all find quite interesting. So we've got that for the 29th. The annual report obviously will be tabled CMT and Council, and annual report, that one's done. I don't think there's anything else to come back, is there? Because corporate now is after March, the co-production's after March. So really, it's just tying up the ends now for the 29th. And wait for Marlin to bring a staff workbook. Jo?
Yeah, can I just say as well, Chair, that Marlin's also going to come to the committee next month to talk about co-production. So she's going to talk about a proposal in terms of developing our corporate approach to co-production. So those will be 2 items for next month.
Thanks, Jo. Any more contributions for today? Are you clear with that, Kate?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Kate. Okay then. It's 14:53 and I'm going to bring the meeting to a close. Thank you all for your attendance. Take care. Keep dry and keep out of the wind. It's very heavy. And I'll see you all next month. Take care.